And we're back again. This is episode 2 of Love, Growth, and Freedom, season 6. We're going to talk about mistakes. If you're new here, this is a podcast that believes in love, acknowledges growth, and encourages freedom. So it's a safe space for you here. If you're someone who's trying to learn more about themselves and trying to get on with life, this is a safe space for you, which I'm trying to create. Ha! And this is a podcast that feels like you're talking to a friend because I am. Here you go. I'm your online bestie. I'm Adrian Duarte here on Love, Growth, and Freedom. I ramble on too much. So on this next episode, we'll talk about contrary beliefs of not making mistakes, okay? I know that making mistakes isn't something fun, you know? And like people would always avoid making mistakes. I'm sure a lot of us would avoid making mistakes, especially the ones that made us feel small, made us feel whatever, and all the like. But on this second episode, I want to talk to you about this one. Make mistakes when you can. Because the first episode, when we talked about making mistakes is allowed because we're humans, now this is it. When you understand that you are allowed to make mistakes, it's time for us to actually explore the world with our hit and miss arrows. Because when you make a mistake, one door closes, another one opens, and another one. It's a web of things that happens in our lives. So make mistakes when you can. So I want to start with this one. You can feel bad about your mistakes. When mistakes happen to you, some of them are what we call honest mistakes, or mistakes that we didn't really see coming. We really were just inattentive of some detail and made the mistake like that. Or some of them were deliberate. When we say deliberate mistakes, we know that there's probably something wrong, but we still don't know what was it, and we still keep doing it until we figure out what was wrong. And some is intentional mistake. You know what I mean? That we already know that it's wrong, we're still gonna do it because we choose to not see the good in it or the bad in it. Those are kinds of mistakes that in my head I made. I don't know. Like that's my way of segregating mistakes. That's my way of making sense of my mistakes. Because making mistakes suck. Especially those honest mistakes where you really was so oblivious to it. Like, it's okay to feel bad about those. Like, it's okay. Feeling bad for your mistakes is a part of it. Because it just shows us a vulnerable part of who we are. Something that we thought that was gone because of, trying to love ourselves, trying to whatever. You'd think that making mistakes is impossible, but it is very, very possible. Feel bad about it because it does take a blow to your ego and self-esteem, but be reminded that it does not define who you are. It doesn't define who you are. These mistakes, no matter how big or small, become a part of who you are and who you wish to avoid to become. So again, reminder that all those mistakes that we make does not define who we are. It just helps us become who we are meant to be, who we are supposed to be, and makes us a little better than we were before. So, yeah, remember that. And again, this podcast is in partnership with Guerilla Podcast Syndicate. Da-da-da-dun. All right. Okay. So, yeah, the reason why I want to talk about make mistakes when you can, it's because because making mistakes is a privilege, TBH. Like, if you can make a mistake and be able to redo something about it, it's a privilege. And mistakes, not only in social classes and all the likes, mistakes that you make within your relationships and your friendships, it is actually a privilege to be able to redo it again. Now, if you know that you're able to redo a lot of things and be able to make mistakes when you can, for example, if you're a beginner in something, you're a newbie in your job, and you're learning to find your groove, it's okay to make those mistakes. Like try things as much as you can, and then if you make mistakes, it's okay because that's the only allowable moment that you get to have mistakes. Making space for your mistakes with the truth that you know about making mistakes. It's time that you create a space for yourself, a space to reflect on mistakes and see what it has brought you. Don't be anxious of what it will reveal because it will only reveal a part of you that you may have neglected or something that doesn't work for you. Giving yourself this space will allow a much kinder inner voice that may help guide you to the path you must be in. So here I am. Contrary belief, make space or make mistakes when you can. Um, I'm not gonna say that you do this in front of a lot of people or I tell this to people. I'm gonna make mistakes as much as I can. It just means that I want you to give yourself this allowance to actually make mistakes, especially if you're a beginner at something and if you're learning something about yourself and if you're growing into somebody you think you want to be. Like if you're changing yourself for the better, be ready to make mistakes. Be open that you're gonna make mistakes because you are changing something. So make a space for yourself. Have this space where you can talk to yourself, hype yourself up, reflect on the things that you're making a mistake upon. For example, I'll give you a way that I do this, okay? So I am trying to not be as reactive to people as I used to be. What does that mean? I am trying not to get mad with little stuff, like little bursts of emotions. I'm trying not to be reactive emotionally with people who try to take away my peace. I usually am sometimes like that, especially when it's within the family, within the whatever. A minor inconvenience can set me off. Like a random minor inconvenience can set me off in a very, very bad emotional reaction. So, what I try to do is I give myself some space. What do I mean by that? Whenever something happens, for example, my sister annoys me and I did not react as I used to, I will give myself a pat on the back and say, good job. You did not react the way that you would used to react. But then, there are times that I would actually have my reaction without even thinking about it. Then after the reaction, I think about it and either apologize or tell myself and reflect that, okay, it was probably an off moment for me and I need to get to know it better and I need to be more mindful of that. So now that I have made mistakes and I allowed myself to have a space within my head to process things, I am able to throw myself back and forth with these mistakes and learn from them. Not just saying, oh, I made a mistake, that's it, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, I'll try to do better. I'm sorry, I'm gonna make it better. So, and you would realize the more that you do this, the more that you give yourself some space to make mistakes in your head, in a notebook, wherever, when you acknowledge that space within you that you have, it's really taking a lot of mindful exercises. But when I do that, for example, there's this one moment in my life, like not recently, that I was so proud of. My sister borrowed the car that I was gonna use, and I told her the time that I was gonna leave. I had to leave at 2:30, and she arrived at 3. And I was like, if you're gonna ask for my time, you would have just respected it, right? If you're gonna ask what time I was gonna leave, you could have respected it and be there the time that I needed you to come home with the car. She didn't. And at first she didn't say sorry. So I sent her a message like on in Facebook. I would have called her, the mean me would have called her and shouted and cursed her and be like, oh, why do you have to do this? You're always like this. You're always responsible. You're always good. Whatever. I'm always gonna do that. I'm like, fuck, blah, 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 blah. Like, come on. I was gonna rat her out with my machine gun mouth. But then I just sent a message. I'm like, the next time you're gonna borrow the car and you're gonna ask for my time, make sure that you respect it, because this doesn't work out for me the way I want it to work out. So like, and you know how I am with my time. So I kind of like had to explain myself. And then she said sorry. So, who wins? Both of us. I learned from my mistakes of exploding. Now I get to explain myself more. And it's a work in progress. I keep having mistakes like those. And sometimes we just really have moments that we sprack on each other. But yeah, that's it. It's a learning thing. But what made me, what made me calmer and more kinder to myself really is just like making a space for myself in my head, making space for my mistakes, allowing me to make mistakes, really. Just having that mindset and that space to reflect on somehow mistakes in my life that I'm gonna be able to incur as the moment that I grow, the moment that because you're never gonna be perfect. You're never gonna have a moment of perfection in your life. You're always just gonna be either a step forward, a step back, and you're always gonna have to realize that you're gonna learn from each of those step forwards and step backs. So, and that I make a space for that. You try doing that. Try to make a space for yourself. If you're changing on certain habit, if you're changing whatever, make a space for yourself. Understand like, okay, this is what I'm doing right, this is what I'm doing wrong, and this is probably something I could do. It's really just being mindful of what you can provide yourself, a space. Again, that space. Now, before we go on to the other topics, again, this is a podcast that believes in love, acknowledges growth, and encourages freedom. And I want you to be in a very, take up chill pill, relax when you listen to me, take your coffee, do your work, whatever it is. Just think of me as a friend just talking behind you like a white noise, whatever, because I can manage that. But this Again, this podcast is in partnership with Guerilla Podcast Syndicate, who's helping me out get to a lot of more listeners and all the likes. So thank you so much. And if you want to tag me on my socials, Fresh FM Adrian, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. If you want to share more of your insights about my episodes, please do let me know and tag me in my stories. And I would definitely reshare it and follow back. I do follow back. So please do. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you like taking a little break and all that. But yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot of things in the horizons for me, and I'm excited, and I'm so happy to share this moment and this platform with you. Now, there's one thing that I like doing about making mistakes, finding yourself in your mistakes. The growth that you'd experience after making a mistake will be good or bad, which is based on your actions and decisions on how to deal with it. Now that you have your space and time to see how this mistake has affected you, you will find pieces of yourselves hidden in these mistakes that would in turn make you strive to be a better person than yesterday. Sometimes it allows you to see the things that doesn't serve you anymore as well. So, finding yourselves in those mistakes, we make mistakes and sometimes we don't acknowledge that the world has moved forward and a lot of the things that we know don't seem to be right and true anymore. That's why we actually make mistakes because we don't accept the changes in the lives that we have. We have to be pragmatic. We have to understand that the situations of our lives will differ now. You know, what is true to us when we were 6 years old isn't true to us anymore that we're 24 or 25. Whatever is true today will not be true again on the 35th because you will learn along the way what serves you and what works for you and what doesn't. Now find yourself in those mistakes. The reason when mistakes happen, instead of fixating on how bad it has affected you, why don't we say, okay, that was shitty, but what was part of me that was preventing me to learn from something from this? What was the things that I kind of like missed out on? So finding yourself in those, because as people, we should never stop figuring ourselves out, discovering who we are. Like life, is an essence of figuring out who we are, what we could do in the universe, what is our purpose each and every day. And I think whenever that we just set an end goal and that's what we're going to be, at the end of that, when we're always postponing our purpose, our goal, our happiness, we'll always have this question like, when will I actually be happy? When will I actually be in the present and who I am today? And who am I? Like, those are the most important questions actually that you have to ask yourselves. Who am I? And sometimes your mistakes will reveal you, your true self, what you actually do, what you actually adhere to, and what are the things that you have to change about yourself that you probably didn't see was wrong then, but now it's wrong. For example, we have internal homophobia. A lot of us were taught that being feminine was bad and that men can't be feminine. Now a part of me sometimes still works on through that, that the world feeds me with the normal heterosexual relationships where it's just man and woman, it has to be feminine and masculine, which is not also always the case. I have to relearn a lot of things. Now I realize I am a feminine person with some masculine features also, but I'm leaning more into feminine because that's how I express myself. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't change as well. We can't really box everybody else, and that's my mistake. And I have to understand that the world changes and the world ever so becomes ambiguous and different each and every time that we become out there. So if I keep an open mind on my mistakes, finding myself in those, I get to be able to connect with different generations, older and younger, because I allow myself to learn from both angles, and that if I make a mistake, I don't really dwell on it too much, but I have to learn from it and then make myself a better person, which makes it easier for me to connect to a lot of people. Now, on the last part of it, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Making mistakes mean you took a shot at your life. It means you tried as much as you wanted and took a chance. You were courageous enough to see what worked for you and what doesn't. For all we know, who you are today are because of your mistakes and all the lessons that it has taught you, and only the universe can show you that. Set you some opportunities and ways to change yourself. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's really just learning all the time. You know, mistakes is a part of life because if you're not making mistakes, are you really trying to learn and expand yourself and your consciousness and what you know about the world? You know, why don't you just keep a cup open, you know, half empty, half full, so that you have enough? Empty your cup, see what's new, and understand how you stand in this world. Because if you're too afraid of taking shots and making those mistakes when you can, you'll never be in a place where you're actually happy. Because for my sake, I try to make mistakes. I try and I will make mistakes. I'm sure of that. But I keep trying nonetheless because the only time that I ever lose is when I give up. Because whenever I try something new, whenever we try something new, new things always come. You know, new knowledge, new lessons. We may not get what we wanted initially, but we get what we actually put in the work for. And we learn from those. Again, learning from all your mistakes or making mistakes will teach you parts of yourself that you actually never realized. So I think and this season what I want you to all remember is that it is making mistakes is a part of our lives, and that making mistakes when you can and giving some space and allowance for yourself to make a mistake is okay, and to give you a kinder voice to who you are. And that ends us on that note is that, yeah, really just make a space for yourself to make mistakes because, it's part of life. Making mistakes is a part of it. And I'm just glad that you're here listening to me today. Thank you for spending your moments with me here on Love, Growth, and Freedom, a podcast that believes in love, acknowledges growth, and encourages freedom. And if you want to send me some loving and join our group, you can join Project U on Facebook, or you can send me a message on Fresh FM Adrian on TikTok, TikTok, Twitter, and on Facebook and on Instagram. So please do. And yeah, I'm all just for that. And thank you for being with me through all out this season. Wow. Season 6. I never thought I'd reach this. But thank you for listening and thank you for always sending me some love. If you have any topics that you want to talk about, just drop them by on my socials and we'll see what I can do about it. Thank you. Goodbye.